Welcome to the Sacred Dance Summit. I'm Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance, Sacred Dance as a Path to the Universal Dancer, and your host for this summit. My guest today is Alia Thabit. Alia is a Levantine American artist, writer, and guide. She celebrates belly dance's cultural ideals of feeling, playfulness, and joy. Alia teaches dancers to listen and sense, to locate blocks, and to melt them with the power of breath, oriental dance, and intuitive movement, so they can discover their own creativity, beauty, and power. An international and online instructor with decades of experience, Alia is a dance meditation and spiritual belly dance instructor, a somatic experiencing trauma resolution practitioner, and the author of Midnight at the Crossroads. Hi, Alia. Welcome to the summit.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you for having me. I'm
Thank you
delighted
for
to be
being
here.
here.
It's a
Yes,
pleasure.
I'm very excited to speak to Alia today. Alia and I have only just met today, a new relationship. So it's very nice to have you here and to hear all about what you're doing and what's going on with your programs and different modalities. I've heard wonderful things about you, so this is very nice to have the opportunity to actually speak to you. So let's start by going backward and just talk a little bit about, I know that you genetically have a connection to the Middle East, but was that how you started in belly dance, or did you study other types of dance, or how did you get involved in dance to begin with?
I really became involved with dance through belly dance, and there was a gal down the block from me giving lessons, and I thought, oh, that will be cultural and sexy. So I signed up for the classes. My family was pretty American, but I really did start dancing because it was a cultural activity, even though my uncle was horrified when he heard what I was doing. But my parents didn't care. They were fine.
And was there dancing? I mean, so it was a way for you to kind of reconnect to your cultural roots, or did it start to come up in the family once you opened that door?
It was a chance to connect to begin with. I mean, we had food, because we lived close enough to my grandmother that we went there quite a lot, so we had food. But my family didn't dance, so I did not have that at all from my family growing up. It was my mother, who is not Arabic at all. She's a WASP from the Midwest, who was in love with the music, um, and played a lot of world music.
Did
And
she like to dance though? I mean, was she attracted to belly dance even if it wasn't her kind of a cultural background?
my mother had a. My mother did not dance with great determination. She did not dance. She had some kind of stop tag in her head, probably left over from being a kid and being forced to, learn to dance with partner dances. She was not having any of it. So no, she did not much dance. Not when anyone could see her, that's for sure. She she just she liked the music a lot. She liked music in general a
Yeah.
lot. And we had a family friend who was a belly dancer. I don't think I ever saw her dance, but my mother did, and she said the best thing about her was that she had this like attitude as a performer is, isn't this wonderful? Aren't we all having a wonderful time? And so in my head that became, that's what a belly dancer does. And lo and behold, it actually is.
It's about joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we get too deeply into that, I want to go kind of through some of the modalities that you do. Maybe you can explain a little bit about what they are. What, for example, what is dance meditation?
Mm. So I have three main, really main dance teachers who have made a huge impression on me and on my style. Ibrahim Farah, Elena Lentini, and Dunya Mcpherson. Dunya is essentially an American Sufi master. She was a protege of Adnan Sarhan and was deeply involved in Sufi work for decades and decades and decades. When she struck out on her own, Sufi dance, not the whirling, but dance, is essentially belly dance. It's the same movement vocabulary and the same music, but with this introspective gaze where you're looking inwardly and this intention of connection with the divine. So spiritual belly dance is that with the Middle Eastern music and movement and everything. Dance meditation is all of that same stuff with a much more eclectic variety of music, so that she had a wider range of music that she could use and a more eclectic, not even a specific movement vocabulary, but a wider open approach to movement. She's a Juilliard trained ballerina originally.
And what about somatic experiencing?
Somatic experiencing is a very gentle model when we are helpless in the face of danger, which who hasn't been? And right now we're in the middle of, this pandemic, which is like an existential threat. You can't see it or touch it or, fight it or run away from it or anything. You're just kind of stuck. So that's the inability to fight or flee can result in, self-defensive impulses that we're unable to express, because what are we going to do? And those can get stuck in the system, like literally stuck in the system. They're physical. PTSD is a physical issue, not a mental issue. You can't talk your way through it, because it's like if you have a thorn in your hand and it gets infected, and you could talk all you want, but that's not going to make the thorn come out or the infection go away. So somatic experiencing is a very gentle way of allowing the trapped residue of stressful events to dissipate. And it fits very, very beautifully with belly dance because it uses a lot of slow movement. It uses this same, and the way that I teach belly dance now is very much this introspective focus, and this, instead of external focus.
Presenting.
Yes. And that's part of performing. When you perform, you're going to have that, but at the same time, with this other practice, you gain as well this introspective core and this ability to be present in the present moment, to be embodied within the present moment. And somatic experiencing has all of these qualities, and belly dance has all of these qualities. So they're a very, very beautiful mix.
And are there specific movements or dance? I mean, somatic experiencing, is it specific, or it's more just about moving something through your body?
It's about moving something through the body, and often people will have little, almost subconscious movements, like they'll be explaining something to you and going like that. And he's like, it's a really interesting, could you slow that down? And then you take some little movement very slowly, and maybe even do it a few times. And, and then it's very, very interesting. And this Dunya's Sufi models involve also a lot of slow movement, very slow movement with, a lot of intention and presence, so that you're not even necessarily doing a move. You're just floating over the music, you're connected to the rhythm through breath, but maybe floating over the melody. And all of a sudden you have all this time and space. I focus a lot on improvisation because that's the cultural dance, and
Mm-hmm.
because of the incredible range of, benefits and, I think body, mind, and spirit that come from improvisation and this grounding in the present moment.
Well, I've heard that you are the queen of improvisation. Most of what I've heard about you is about improvisation. So, yeah, no, I think, and it is important because it's something that's uniquely yours or coming through you. So, yeah.
It's each person's unique everything, because so much in the West we get taught to dance by copying, and we get taught by through choreography, and so everybody works very hard to be exactly the same, and it's just like, eh, this is not what Oriental dance is about. Oriental dance is
Yeah.
about your unique expression, and how does your body feel the music, and how does your body want to express the music.
What I see in Egypt, like just women who are dancing at a party, is that each woman seems to have her like specialty move. They might do some other things, but then they have this one move that they have like perfected, and you really feel that it's theirs for
Mm.
whatever reason, that that's the thing that kind of defines them. And yeah, it's not coming from anyone else because they have a possibility of range of movements, but they've chosen that particular one for some reason. Let me ask you about introception. You've mentioned this word several times, so maybe you can kind of just explain what it means or what it entails.
Interception, introspection, which is a term that we're all familiar with, is, kind of thinking inwardly about, your own self and your own actions, and sort of a self-analysis in that way, right? So introspection is looking inward, like into the body and into the self, and just observing what's there. So, maybe there's a little tightness over here, and you just observe that, and allow that to be. And it's a way of being grounded in the present moment. We spend a lot of time thinking about the past and the future, and, worrying, or, whatever, the various emotional things that we have associated with the past and the future. And we don't end up spending all that much time in the present moment. And yet that is where we spend our entire lives, is in the present moment. So whatever brings us into the moment and allows us to feel safe and grounded is extremely valuable. So interception is just looking inward. So with both the spiritual belly dance and the dance meditation, it is quite common to close the eyes when moving, and to just be experiencing how the body feels. And in belly dance, we know, I have heard over and over and over again from top dancers and even musicians, the most important thing is the feeling, right? But in
Yes.
Arabic, like in English, feeling is emotional, whatever emotional things we might be feeling, but it also refers to physical sensation. So if you close your eyes and you're moving, even before you move, you can feel all these muscles contracting with the intention to move. And you can lift your arm, and you can feel all those little muscles and the tendons and the bones and the flesh and everything sliding over each other. And the sensation of your fingers moving, or I can feel the sensation of my fingers moving, and the stretching of some muscles and the contracting of others. And I'm just letting this movement evolve. I don't have a plan. I'm just letting it evolve and noticing these physical sensations in the body. And as I notice these physical sensations, I can even open them and lift them and make the quality of my music, my movement, you know, very gracious and generous because I'm moving slowly. So slow movement uses more and smaller muscles. It builds a lot of capacity for um, sustain, like this sustained quality of the movement, and this isometric push and pull quality of the movement. So you get really very juicy movement out of it. And you get more grounded and you get calmer because you're using breath. Somehow, I consider belly dance to be like a mind body practice. You know, up there with yoga, tai chi, all of the martial arts, all of the, you know, famous mind body practices. In my opinion, belly dance is on a par with any of them in terms of, you know, validity and value, and even better because we have music and spangles. It has all of that, like, you know, it has
Glitz.
the sacred and the profane all wrapped up into one pretty sparkly toy. You know, it's like it's very cool. It's nothing. I never have encountered anything else that has this same quality of, you know, sort of sacredness and glory that belly dance has. It's
Yeah,
really
it's very
splendid.
aesthetic as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and it's good, it's beautiful to watch, and it gives the viewer, the guests all get this same, you know, they get that joy. And what is the dancer doing? The dancer shares their joy with their guests. The dancer experiences joy in their connection to the music and to the people and to the musicians and to the space around them. And the dancer shares their joy with the guests.
I want to share your mission statement for those who haven't read it because I thought it was very beautiful, and maybe we can talk about it a little bit. To awaken people to their own beauty and power, enable them to express their unique individuality through art, bring honor and appreciation to Oriental dance, enjoy a life of creativity, adventure, mystery, abundance, and ease, cultivate a radiant oasis of warmth and delight. That's beautiful. And
Thank
that
you.
about covers it.
I think
I
so.
think that's the best we can possibly hope for. Yes. So I want to ask you a little bit about, or let's have a conversation about this kind of the difference between the Western idea of belly dance and the Eastern, more cultural idea of belly dance. I left the US in 1985, I think.
So brave.
So when I left, belly dance was not really a big thing in the US. And I came to Egypt, and it's a cultural thing here. And then to kind of go back and see this, you know, everyone talking about Egyptian belly dance, and I was kind of like, how do you know about that, you know? And I realized it with the internet and all, everything is everywhere. But that was really interesting to me because when I came to Egypt, I really knew nothing about belly dance except maybe kind of the mythology of, you know, Matahari or
Mm.
something like that, but really not knowing anything, and then having my own experiences here. So that made me really curious, like what exactly is going on. So I think you kind of have that also from the other side, where it's cultural for you in your family and your background, but you were raised in the US.
Mm.
So let's talk about that because I think it is an important subject.
Yeah, I came into belly dance in the 70s. I was 16 at the time. And that was when the nightclub scene I lived in New York City. I grew up in Brooklyn. And the nightclub scene was really big at that time. Like all the Greek nightclubs were a thing. And the 8th Avenue,
Yeah.
that was all a thing. So, and the dance I think was relatively, I'm going to use the term pure, because it had come in from actual ethnic people, because there was a lot of ethnic people and they liked to go to clubs, and it was like all the stuff to remind them of home, and there was the food and the music and the dance. The gal down the street, when she got tired of giving lessons, she said, "Oh well, you can go to the class that I go to," and she sent us to Ibrahim Fada. So, I was a bobby dancer from early on in the 70s. And Bobby never did anything the same way twice. I didn't matter how many times I went to class over the course of 1 week, we did something different every single time. So we learned very quickly, because we were constantly recombining and recombining and recombining and recombining. I mean, it was kind of, I went from the little class down the street to a professional performers class. But what did I know? I didn't know enough to be intimidated. It was like, oh, but
This is fun. Yeah.
yeah. So I think I was very lucky in my introduction to the dance, that I was introduced to the dance. Bobby's Lebanese, his family did dance. He came from a dance family, not like necessarily a performer family, but a family that danced, where that was really part of their culture, where that wasn't part of the culture in mine. So I feel very lucky about that. And that was in the 70s. And then in the 80s, as you mentioned, it kind of went on one of its periodic downturns, and there wasn't so much belly dance around. And then and then I it and then I'm a little hazy about that part at the moment. But what has happened since was that as trained dancers later, like time went by, the 80s, the 90s, and so forth. And as Western trained dancers started getting into belly dance, and people don't have a lot of information about the cultural dance, because we didn't have the internet anyways then, up until relatively recently, generally speaking. What, the late 90s, we had the Med Dance Group. We started to have some, there was some websites, and we started to have some discussion boards and things like that. And over time, and also because I think as even Egyptian dancers came here and taught choreographies. I first saw Bobby teaching a choreography in the early 80s. He had gone to see Nadia Gamal, I guess, and he had memorized her nightclub show, and he was teaching that. But Nadia Gamal came from a family of ballroom dancers who performed in Badia Messebni's Casino Opera, and they had a highly choreographed show. So, it stands to reason that she would also have a highly choreographed show, because that's what she was brought up in. So anyways, what I found, because I had to think about and confront all of these things while I was writing the book. The book started out with, I'm not happy about some of these things. And it was like, well, you can't just complain about how much better it was in the old days. You have to, you really have to look at this and figure out what's better about it and why that's worth embracing these cultural ideals. So as the dance became popular here, and it became more highly choreographed here, and it became it and I think largely because there was just a dearth of cultural information, all of a sudden we had choreography, and then you're like memorizing stuff, and you got to remember what you're supposed to do next instead of just being with the music. And you have the choreographer who's high status in the West. The choreographer has a higher status than the dancer who just does what they're told. Where in the East, the dancer agency is everything. Agency is everything. You are the dancer. You, interpret the music as you wish. You have this artistic agency. And, so, but instead it's like, no, I have to remember this thing. And I think a lot of this is from the, the combined blessing and curse of recorded music. Because when you have nothing but live music, by gosh, you better improvise, because who knows what the heck they're going to do.
Exactly.
And the
who
musicians,
knows if they're on or off that night.
that too. But, the musicians pride themselves on never playing anything the same way twice. So it's always going to be different. Their feeling is different. Your feeling is different. And in the nightclub days, it was all live music. So now we have recorded music. And when you have recorded music, you can have a pre-recorded dance as well. So everything becomes more tight, and people like go to class for months to learn one dance.
Yeah.
And that, the dance still has its qualities. And I think it's still, even under those circumstances, has its potential for joy. But it's just, the more elements you put in between. Arabic music and dance go together. Well, Middle Eastern music and dance go together, let's say, because we have Greece and we have Turkey and we have, these other influences, I'll say. So there's musical influences, and, your dance is going to change depending on the music, because different kinds of music call different qualities of movement. And we have micro movement. Who has micro movement but us? Who has that level of freedom? And when you're learning choreography all the time, you're really getting further divorced from micro movement, further divorced from dancer agency. Lots of people learn belly dance and they never hear a note of Arabic music. They dance all to Western music.
But I think that's very Western, to that desire to control, and that desire to make it right, and to be very mental. So I think, I mean, that to me is the problem, is that choreography, at least to begin with, is going to be in your head. If you're trying to learn something, it's in your head. Maybe after that, when you become familiar with it, maybe you can let go and whatever. But I think that is probably typical of anything that goes to the West, is that it becomes very mental. And I think then the other side of that, or leading on from that, is this idea of professionalism, in that I think a lot of women don't see themselves as dancers if they haven't gone to dance classes and haven't achieved some level of competency, or whatever you want to call it. And I think that's unfortunate, because dance is an expression, and it should bring joy, and we should have that that feeling that we can do it, even if we can't hear the beat. It doesn't matter. All children dance. I think it's a very freeing thing, but unfortunately, people have gotten the idea that if they can't consider themselves a dancer if they haven't taken dance classes. And again, I think that's a very Western idea of professionalism or whatever. And I see that, like in my classes, I say, you don't have to be a dancer, just do it. Think of it as movement. So yeah, I think that's unfortunate that it became so mental, that it went into everybody's head, and stopped maybe being in their body so much.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I don't think it's done anyone any favors. It's just made us more anxious, more perfectionism, more perfectionist. And the other part of it is that the dance in this country has been presented primarily as a performance art. So everybody is supposed to perform. Where are they supposed to perform anymore? There's no place to perform anymore. So the dance has ironically kind of moved everything around, so that once again, our performances are largely for other dancers. And even, you know, even parties have been turned into this parade of performances. We need more parties because the playfulness has been weeded out of the dance. The fun and the playfulness and the social aspect of it has just been like, you know, ruthlessly extracted, and all that we're left with is this, you know, perfectionist hard work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
The heck with hard work.
Yeah.
It's, you know, when I was learning, the wisdom was, this is not a dance that requires trained bodies. This is not a
Yes.
dance of trained bodies. This is a dance of real people. And while you know, the continuation of that was, you know, so for professional purposes, you might want to train people a little bit in, you know, arm carriage. But this is a dance of the people, and it is a dance for having fun, and it is a dance to be playful and to enjoy yourself. Lila Farid, who danced in Egypt for many years, I asked her what did she look for in a dancer. This was ages and ages and ages ago. And she said, well, first I look to see if the dancer is having fun. I was like, eh? You know, that had never crossed my mind at that time. And I'd already been dancing for a long time. That had never crossed my mind as a main criteria.
Yeah.
Is the dancer having fun? And you know, I had to really like sit with that. And but as I thought back to my, you know, dance experiences over time, I realized that really was, I went in the late 90s to Rakasa West for the first time. I don't know if you've ever been to it, but this was it when it was at its heyday, and it was huge. Hundreds of dancers, you know, all day long on 2 stages, and like everybody who made any kind of belly dance stuff ever. I was like, I had never even imagined anything like that. And so my friend and I sat in the front row for hours. I went with my friend um, Adrian. We sat in the front row for hours, and our conclusion at the end of watching all of these dancers was, attitude is everything. We did not really care about, you know, the people who danced well, obviously that was great, but the people who danced well and had a personality and a presence, and they were really there, and they were being human beings there, those were the people that, you know, really stuck with us. um, and that's part of that. You have your own self. Your own self is unique and marvelous and special, and that's who wants to come and dance. Whether you adopt a persona, you know, for a character dance, or for particular music, or you have, you know, something particular that you want to express with a particular song, it's you that we really want to be with. You know, we enjoy a dancer because she cares, he or she, they care about us. And, you know, as my mother said, decades and decades and decades ago, here we are all together. Isn't this wonderful? Aren't we all having a wonderful time?
Yes, and I think that that's an important point about the joy, because like here you get a belly dancer, say, for a wedding, and I think she's the one that gets the party started. You know,
Yes.
she's not, you're not, and nobody is going to sit in their seat while the belly dancer is up. Everybody, the men are all up clapping, the women are probably dancing. But yeah, that I think is her role, is to get the party started. So because in the end, then everybody starts dancing.
Yes.
And I really do think that people would much rather, here at least, would much rather dance than watch somebody dance, even if it's a very well-known dancer. I really think it is about getting into the mood more than it is about seeing some kind of a performance.
Yes. And in the ethnic clubs, there might have been a couple of dancers, but then there was, in between all the dancers, there was open floor, because that's the dancer's job. You break the
Yeah,
ice and you give everybody permission to have a good time.
yeah. Well, that, yeah, that's unfortunate if that's not how things have ended up. I would want to go back. Oh, something else I wanted to say, and I thought that, I think this is, you will appreciate this, but something that I noticed here in Egypt, when you go to see somebody dance, so this is in a nightclub or at a wedding or something, is you can always tell the foreign dancers as opposed to the Egyptian dancers. Obviously, they all have, you know, very exotic names. But what I noticed, and this was really impacted my own teaching, was that the Egyptian dancers always sit. Like you see them sitting in their body, their knees are bent,
Mm,
and the Western dancers are always somehow pulled up, you know, and it makes you, yeah, and it makes you feel this. And I never thought about it until after I thought, what? Because I would say that, no, that woman's foreign, that one's Egyptian, you know, and then I'm thinking, what is it like? How is it that I can tell just by looking at them? And, you know, they may have wigs on that either make them blonde or make them dark hair. So it's
yeah.
not that, it's their dancing. And that, when I realized that these Egyptian women are really like sitting in their bodies, I thought, yeah, because they're really embodied, they're really
Mm-hmm.
present, where the other ones are all, and it creates a kind of tension to feel somebody is really lifted. For me, creates this kind of tension, like they're going to blow away or something. I don't, there's something about it. Again, I haven't really thought this through, but yeah, when they're sitting in their body, it's a whole kind of a different, I don't know, it makes you feel different
Yes.
as the observer, just to watch these two different
It's
kind of stances.
you're safe.
Yeah, and you feel like that person is really there
Yes.
somehow.
And they're there
They're,
for you. They care about you, and they're not just out there to show off in front of you. They're there to bring you with them on their journey through the music.
yes. I'm going to look at things very differently now. Next time I see somebody dance, I'm going to, and again, as I said, it's, you know, I wasn't there in the US for that whole, when the wave came in kind of thing. So it's, yeah, it's very curious to me what's going on, but yeah. I'm going to go back to something else that we sort of touched on. And that was about going back to kind of the interception and the and trauma. Do you feel that belly dance specifically could be used for trauma healing,
I
or
do.
how might it be used?
I very much think that when I started in 2011, because I had some things in my past that kind of really hadn't gone anywhere, you know, that every time I got close, you know, that would, so I started looking into trauma healing for my own purposes. And what I realized really from the get-go is that all these things that were part of trauma healing, like the first therapist that I went to did EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is what that stands for. And it's all about midline crossing. So the eyes look side to side, they look down, they look up. You might use like a little nodes that you hold in your hand that buzz, and they buzz, you know, on different sides of the body. And it's like, midline crossing, please. Eyes, please. You know, and just, I swear, I call it twinkling, you know, the belly dance gaze, which is all like, oh, you know, the
Maltufa.
flirtatious gaze. You do that for 30 seconds and you feel better already. You know, it lifts your mood just to do it for 30 seconds. So we have that. And then which move doesn't cross the midline? You know, we have this and we have
Mhm.
this and we have this and we have everything. It's like, well, that's very interesting. And so I said to the therapist, I stood up and I said, and I started to move, and I said, so what do you think about, if we had, belly dance, really seems that, so, you would like hold, and part of EMDR is like holding the event in the, in the front part of the processing part of the mind while you do these things. So what if you kind of, were holding that and, moving like this? And she's like, I don't think I could feel bad for one moment moving like that. So I said,
Wow.
good then. The hunt is on. And, the deeper I got into this, and in 2012, I discovered somatic experiencing. I read Peter Levine's book, In an Unspoken Voice. And every page was like, this is it. This is it. Because the other therapist was into like that tapping stuff. And
EFT?
not EFT, and that didn't really resonate for me. I did not find that it was particularly helpful. So I was like, well, I'm going to keep looking. There's got to be other things. And that's when I found Peter Levine. And every page I was like, oh yeah, this is totally it. So this idea that these things are kind of stuck inside of you and you can release them. And I called a therapist I was in California at the time, and I like went to the directory and I found someone in the same town as me, and I called her up and I said, hey, I'm here for 3 more days and I just read this book. Do you have time in your schedule that you could see me? And really from there, I've never looked back, and it was like, this is it. And finding people to work with, because there weren't that many, it wasn't that easy. And then in 2017, I entered the professional program and finished that towards the end of 2019 there. And now I have my certificate. And really, I credit that and my SE therapist that I work with on a consistent basis for the level of calm that I feel in the face of everything that's happening now. And so I've been bringing that and worked at integrating more and more of those principles into my dance classes. So I've brought all that stuff into my dance classes, and I'm going to be deploying just a very small, like half-hour program that's just, for right now, that's just for grounding and helping people to feel more calm and build their container of resilience so that they can, get through this, because these are tough times.
Yeah. And any kind of movement, I think, will help you move through anxiety, but to do it consciously, I think, is obviously. When I started teaching, I was teaching belly dance, even though I knew absolutely nothing about, to Egyptian women.
There you go.
Dive into the deep end, right?
Right.
But so they already knew how to dance, but they didn't know kind of these other layers of it. So that's really what I was adding to the experience. But that was the first thing that I realized, or that I noticed, was all the releases that they were having, especially obviously in the sacral chakra, and that was what piqued my curiosity. This was before I got in, this is before I created the Alchemy of Dance or any of that. I was just, someone asked me to do these classes and I did them. And so yes, just even unconsciously, spontaneously, without any kind of focus on trying to release trauma, that was really what was happening. So
Yeah.
And the amount of people that have been, women that have been sexually abused, I think that this is a wonderful way to work through that. I'm sure doing it consciously in the way that you're doing it with a background in that would be much better. But for anyone, I think it's a wonderful way to do that.
It is baked in to the cultural dance. It is baked right in.
Yeah.
The dance and the music together. It's just, it's, we're doing our best to separate it here in the West, but it is essentially, inseparable. And when people, because when people first come into belly dance, they tend to really feel the spirituality of it, and see it as a spiritual or sacred activity, and over time that that ebbs. This Rachel Krauss did a small study, and over time people's view of the dance as a sacred activity kind of faded, and things that people cited were backbiting and cattiness in the dance community, because
Wow.
all of the things that we've all heard over and over again about kind of toxic levels of dance community. In fact, I use the belly dance scene now rather than the community, because in so many places it's not a community.
That's
And
too
the
bad.
turfiness, because it's, oh well, we're all supposed to perform, but where, you know
That's
and
too
it'd
bad.
be scenery and a hookah bar at the best, and the rest of it is whatever recitals the teacher puts on, and it just becomes about being a spectator and staring at dancers on YouTube, and looking for the flaws, and looking at yourself for flaws. What am I doing wrong? um, the
Mm.
dancer empowerment project that I have coming up is all about, what are you doing right, and how
Yeah.
can you do more of that, and how can
Yeah.
you have more fun.
Whatever you did wrong is a second and it's past. Yeah. If
Who
even.
cares?
Yeah.
It's over. Nobody really even noticed it, and the more fun that you have and the more fun that they have, the less they could care.
Mm-hmm. Just smile. When you do it wrong, just smile. That's what I learned in the theater. You do something wrong, just smile.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
nobody cares.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to ask you about your book. Let's finish up with that. Tell us a bit about your book.
So as I said, it just started with sort of dissatisfaction, and became for me this really took a long time to write. uh, a long time. I began it in 2014, I think, at the very beginning of 2014, and I did not. I self-published it, but I did not publish it until the end of 2017. So it took quite a few years, and that was good, because it kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's in 4 parts. The fourth part, the practice part, is the gift that is coming along with this to the viewers. But the first part looks at the cultural dance, and the difference between the cultural dance and the popular Western version of the dance. The Western ideals as opposed to the Eastern cultural ideals, and looks at the two of those things, and shows how, compare and contrast, how very, very different they are. Different every time, as opposed to the same every time being top of the list. And
Inconsistency.
the slubs and imperfections are part of the beauty of this fabric. Uh, and then the second part looks at the problems that come from this culture clash. What issues have come as a result of that. And then the third part is the benefits to mind, body, and spirit that come from embracing the cultural ideals. And then the fourth part is the practice. So how do you do this? How do you do this for yourself?
Is it your journey? I mean, is that kind of how the process that you went through?
I was
Learning it in that
fortunate.
way? Yeah.
I was fortunate in that I never had a Western dance background. When I was very small, Chubby Checker was on TV once a week with twist lessons with Chubby Checker. So, I hustled my way in for twist lessons with Chubby Checker, and I liked to dance, but we never did, and my family didn't dance. We never did any dance stuff. My mother sent me to, some kind of modern dance class one time somewhere where we had to like be a tree or something, and I came home and said, I'm never going there again. So
You were waiting just for the right moment, for the right thing to come in.
so essentially I was lucky because I had no dance background when I came to Oriental dance.
Yes.
And I came to Oriental dance with a really superb teacher, because the gal who taught me was Ibrahim Farah's student. And so I went to Bobby's class, and then from Bobby, Elena was, began teaching. I first saw Elena and was just, because she was astounding. She's been astounding her entire life, and she continues to be a mentor and very, very dear friend to me. So, and then she was teaching for Bobby. So Bobby and Elena really um, formed my basic understanding of the dance. And even though Bobby made choreographies, he didn't really, in all the time that I was there, we never learned any of them. We had combinations, but again, and I learned to play finger cymbals because there was an hour of dance class and an hour of finger cymbal class. So I had all that, and was kind of at sea when we got to the choreography, later on when everything became choreography. And it was like, and then my students wanted choreographies because they wanted a product, so I started making dances for them. But even at that time, I tended to make dances that had backstories and, like, sort of theatrical narratives. Because the other thing about this dance is the idea that you have something to say, you have something to express. You're not just putting out a series of empty box movements. You have presence, you have gifts to give in those boxes. So that kind of was always part of it for me. And there were things that, like, then we would get to the floor part of, oh, I'm not choreographing that. That's just stupid. just dance.
Good for you. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
But
they
I
were
think
very
that intimidates people. I mean, I
people.
think that's the
Yes, it
problem in
does.
the West, that when you don't give choreo, because I've had this, I don't feel that the dance that I am teaching, it's very much about how you feel. So I don't feel that there should be choreography, but people get really worried when there's no choreography. So you kind of have to create something just to make them relax a little bit.
Yeah, I don't anymore. And I teach a 15-week community college course on Middle Eastern dance and culture. And so I get a group of people who are either absolute beginners of a wide variety of ages and experience, because it's a small town way up north. It's not a metropolis of, you know, not a highly cultured metropolis, shall we say. So I get a wide variety of people. Some of them are, younger folks who maybe did dance in high school and, so some of them have some dance background, and some of them have absolutely no dance background. And at the end of the 15 weeks, those people can get up and dance, because I don't teach any choreography. It's mostly follow me. I emphasize fun. I emphasize, people taking turns and just getting up to move. And at the very end, as a group, we compose a dance, so that, they have a arts night, and so that we can be part of the arts night. So we, as a group, through an improvisational process, that I actually got a grant to develop an improvisational composition process. Wow. Back in 2004, and I'm still using it now. So as a group, we compose a dance. So everything is on the level of what they can do. Everything is moves that they come up with, all the moves. I just art direct them. Like, what do we do here? Okay, let's do that here. And the dances are much more interesting and complex than you could generally teach beginners with, a couple of months of class, because they made them themselves. But, and I felt really justified. Yasmina Ramsey brought Dina, excuse me, to Canada for the Blossom Festival last year, the year before. I'm not very good with time. Um,
Recently.
Recently, yeah. And so they had a whole, like a long Q&A, like they had panel discussions, and Dina was a panel of one. And someone asked her, what do you think about teaching choreography to beginners? And she said, no, beginners should not touch choreography until they have been dancing for 2 years at least.
Wow.
So I was like,
Good for her. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No.
thank you. I'm vindicated.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. I agree. Small group, but we agree.
Yeah. It's just not necessary, and it's not helpful, because if you want people to feel empowered and to have confidence, the whole confidence thing, and you have to trust your body that you're gonna just like move and something will come out and it will be
Hmm.
okay, because people are terrified to improvise, absolutely terrified.
Yes. Yeah.
So that there's plenty of classes that will teach you, technique and stylization, stylized movement. Why we have micro movement? We have micro movement. It's so much better. So there's plenty of classes that teach that stuff. And I decided then, in that case, I'm going to focus on improvisation and building dancer confidence and empowering dancers to actually find and present their own voice.
Well, good for you. And you've succeeded because you are the queen of improvisation. So I think, yeah, you've been recognized for that. And
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Yeah. Good. And yeah, and if people feel they need the choreography, they can go find somebody that's going to teach them choreography.
Yeah, there's plenty of that.
Yeah.
I think about the balance of Dionysus and Apollo, because Apollo is all like, and Dionysus is all,
Hmm.
woo!
Let's have fun.
And,
Uh-huh.
and the necessity of that, the necessity of the opportunity for abandon and just letting the body move and letting things happen. And, bad things happen when you cut that out of your life.
Yes.
And so, and that's why we need to have it, and we need to have it in a way, in a safe way, and which is why I use a lot of slow movement.
Hmm.
Because even if you are, really you would like to stab something, and you just like have that intention, and you have the power of that, and you hold it, that can dissipate, and
That's
you have
beautiful.
this beautiful
Yeah.
transitional, transformative experience for yourself. And if you are a performer, you can have that experience for your guests as well, because the mind really can't distinguish very well the difference between, what it sees and what it imagines and what it actually does.
Tell us about up and coming events. What are you doing? Are you doing anything kind of online during this period of time, and what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I've been doing online classes for quite a long time, since 2012. I teach writing at a state college, and I was an early adopter of online classes. So I brought all of that expertise into, the belly dance arena. So I teach a lot of forum-based online classes where we have like daily homework and assignments and stuff, and a lot of discussion and like conceptual. I teach a composition class, for example, dance composition, and I teach improvisation classes online with daily assignments and stuff. So I have those, and then I also have live online dance classes, which are, and I call them fun classes because that's what they are. So, you're not going to get exacting technique, but you're going to have a good time. You're going to dance together and have a good time. And they include dance meditation stuff in those classes. And I've been imbuing them with more and more just like grounding and kind of stuff, so that everybody can just feel better. So I have, those are kind of ongoing, the fun classes. And then I have lots of little classes on Teachable and these big forum-based classes that happen periodically. Those are, those are live with daily interaction. I'm in the middle of one now, 90-day dance party, where people commit to free-form improvisation for 20 minutes a day for 90 days, where I think today is day 59 or day 60 or something like that. And coming up, I have this dancer empowerment project. It's Focus on the Feeling, dancer empowerment project. And it's all about looking at the dance, looking for what's working, looking for ways to sort of like assist the self with growing and blossoming as a dancer and as an artist. And that people do that, and the response is just like, I like myself so much better. I like my dance so much better. And my dance is better. I'm
Sure.
dancing just so much more beautifully, and I'm so much happier doing it.
Wow. Yeah. No, that sounds great. All right. And you have a free gift for our viewers. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah. Part 4 of the book, which, well, if I was a really organized person, I'd have a copy right here. Oh, look, I do.
So you are organized, yeah.
Part 4 of the book is the how-to part, and the title of that is Practice, the Door to Healing, Soul, and Joy. And I want to read you one paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the very beginning paragraph, or 2 paragraphs. It says, this has nothing to do with dance. There is a kind of grub that ants love, not to eat. They love its scent. They love its scent so much that they take the grub into their nests. They feed and nurture the grub, lavishing care upon it, yet all the while, that grub is eating the ant's eggs as fast as it can gobble. The ants, fanatically careful of their eggs, are so enamored of the grub that they don't even notice. Like that grub, traumatic stresses suck up all our attention. We are so busy with these vortices that we have no space to relax, enjoy, or open ourselves to the moment. Another world is possible.
Wow. That's a wonderful analogy. Yeah.
And that's what all this, it has, it talks about just the idea of the practice and what it involves, preparation, inner space, outer space, music, props and equipment. It has cute illustrations. I don't know if you can see it, but the book has wicked cute illustrations all the way through. My illustrations.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Thank you. That's very generous. Thank you for offering that to our viewers. Thank you for being here. It's been wonderful to speak to you and get to know you better, and thank you.
It is a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really happy to meet you too. And hopefully one of these days we will even meet in person, and that would be really fun.
Yes, that would. And thank you to the viewers for being with us, and be sure to download Alia's gift. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.